In March of 2019, a self-proclaimed Satanist murders a man. The details of the murder are brutal, but the most shocking of all is where it occurred, in a California state prison. He was tortured as a child, and as an adult, did unto others as was done unto him. He's confessed to 4 murders. He's currently serving life for 1. This is the unbelievably true story of a killer who called himself the Man of 1,000 Faces. This is Jamie Osuna, the Tattooed Sadistic Killer. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Podorf. Welcome to Hitch to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome.
You didn't even try to do it in a foreign language today.
I did. That was for my Canadian friends.
You're bad.
Oh,
You're
well.
so bad, I swear.
Well, I got to get my Canadian friends in there.
There, I know, and you have Canadian friends.
Yeah.
Eh? You have to say A. I have Canadian friends, eh?
House.
In the house, all about.
Yes.
We love you, Canada.
Yeah.
We do love you. Well, wherever you're listening, like, rate, and review. That helps other people to find us.
Mm-hmm.
You can go join our closed Facebook group, the In-Laws and Outlaws, the
Yes.
Hitch to Homicide In-Laws and Outlaws. And I know we say this every week, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I love that group so hard.
I do.
They're so funny.
Well, and I'm finally finished with I was doing writing 2 cruise line shows for MSC Cruise Lines, and it just consumed all of my time. Now that I don't have it to do, I can get into the Hitch to Homicide In-Laws and Outlaws group and participate a little bit more.
He's just trying to tell you, y'all, he's been really busy.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy.
He's been busy.
A little
That's
crazy.
okay. Busier than a moth in a mitten.
Yep, keeping the lights on.
Thanks.
No, just saying.
Well, I'm going to jump right into this one today. This case is crazy. These murders are so brutal that the police didn't give all the details.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how bad it was.
Wow.
This isn't ongoing. I will have to do a follow-up on this. But when I started doing research on Jamie Osuna, I was like, it really can't be that bad. And then I pulled a picture up, and everybody's going to go pull a picture up of him right now. Because we always get that comment as soon as I start talking. What does this shithead look like?
Right.
Well, this guy is
Creepy?
he's that, and he's all that and a bag of chips.
Okay.
He's a
He's
lot.
creepy chips.
Yeah. Well, he's a Satanist, and he has it all over his face. He's got a pentagram on his forehead and all that
Yeah.
kind of good stuff.
That
But
stuff just kind of creeps me out.
I know Rob does not like anything demonic at all. He won't watch scary movies with me that have anything to do with demons. Of
Can't
course,
do it.
I watch every horror movie, and we're about to roll right into the fall season and all the horror movies. I love them all. If you have any suggestions for me, send them my way, because some of the best horror movies are like B movies that don't get a whole lot of press. So I'm always up to watch anything. In fact, maybe that's what I'll do. I will start watching some horror movies, and in the podcast, I'll give my recommendations. Just through Halloween.
Maybe we can go watch my first film that I ever did back in the 90s.
That is a horror movie. That is a horror movie in so many ways.
It's so
And
bad.
I don't even think we should tell people the name of it. So
it's just terrible.
it's awful.
It's embarrassing.
We've all done things. You were young. You
I
needed the
needed the money.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. Well, before I get started today, I want to thank some sources. KRON TV in California, Wikipedia, Newsweek, Bakersfield.com, KGET.com, and Danielle Kirsty on YouTube. And there is a fascinating podcast about this case on KGET.com. I did not listen to all of it. I will put it in my source notes because there were a few things that I took from it, but I didn't listen to the whole thing. But you know what? Podcasters have to support podcasters, and I will I'll put a link in there if you want to do an even deeper dive.
Okay. Well, let's do it.
Jamie Osuna is born on March 7th, 1988 in Bakersfield, California. I have genes older than this killer, 1988.
And I have shoes that are older than your jeans. So there you go. I one-upped you.
1988, yeah. Well, Bakersfield, California is where he grew up. His mama's name is Michelle. He's got an older half-brother. His dad really isn't in the picture most of his life. His parents get married about a year before he's born. They don't have a name for his father anywhere. I couldn't find his name anywhere. He's going to be raised mainly by his mother, who is 19 years old when she has him.
Wow.
So a baby having a baby.
Yeah.
But his biological dad, one thing that we do know about him is that he is very abusive to his mother. And there's a story that his biological dad kicked his mom in the stomach when she was about 8 months pregnant with Jamie.
Jeez.
So not a nice guy.
Right.
And you've heard nature versus nurture. Well, Jamie Osuna gets the short end of the stick on both accounts.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything quite like this. But Jamie's mom is also absent in his life a lot. She divorces Jamie's dad and meets another man whom she marries. His name is Jeff.
Okay.
But it's out of the frying pan and into the fire with this Jeff guy. And Jamie's biological dad doesn't like Jeff. He holds a knife to Jeff's throat.
Oh, wow.
And he's eventually arrested. So the home life is just crap all the way around.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I don't want my family, but I don't want you to have my family either.
Wow.
But biological dad is now out of the picture. Sorry to keep calling him that, but I didn't have a name. And Michelle...
Let's just call him Bio Dad.
Bio Dad? Well, Bio Dad's out of the picture now.
There you go.
And Michelle marries Jeff. But Jeff didn't want to take care of the two boys, Jamie and his half-brother. He was not a good stepfather. So again, kind of out of the frying pan and into the fire sort of thing.
Right.
Jamie's childhood is very rough. Jeff abused the boys, and in one of the incidents, Michelle and Jeff go on a fishing trip. They take little Jamie with them, and on the way home, mind you, he's a baby.
Right.
He's in a car seat. He's crying. He keeps crying from the back seat. That's what babies do.
Yeah.
Babies cry.
That's their job.
But Jeff wants him to shut up. So while they are driving, while the car is moving, Jeff opens the door. He pushes Jamie in the car seat out of the moving car.
What?
He throws this infant child out of the car.
Oh, my God.
Inside his car seat. Now, Jamie survives. He has no, quote, visible injury, according to his mom later on. So Michelle and Jeff don't take him to be checked out. It's kind of like, looks okay. I guess he's okay. Guess he's, and later in life, doctors are going to say he probably had a closed head injury.
You think?
I would imagine. Oh my gosh!
A baby being pushed from a moving car.
Get thrown out in his car seat, which kind of made me think of Raising Arizona.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of too.
The baby's in the car seat in the middle of the road, and the biker guy comes flying by and just like picks him up in one fell swoop. Yeah. That is such a bizarre movie, but so funny.
I know. We need to get that. Also, and forgive me, what year was this again?
So he's born in 1988. So this is like 1989, 1990.
Yeah, because baby car seats weren't, they were a little more secure, but they weren't like they are today.
No. Well, I think they get better every single year.
Yeah. So when he was tossed out with that car seat, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's not like, it wouldn't be like a car seat today, or it's really not like the car seat when I was a kid and I would stand in the back seat and put my arm behind my mom while she drove without a seatbelt. Welcome to the 70s.
Yeah, I was laying on the back of that little shelf where the back window is in the car.
Yeah, this is why. Yeah, don't you remember all the station wagons where you were like facing out? People were driving Pintos that like exploded on impact.
Hey, my first car that I ever got was a Pinto wagon.
Yeah, I dated a guy who had a Pinto wagon in high school. Never even occurred to me that the whole thing could just go up in flames. But
it was baby poop brown.
I think this is why we always say our generation. Well, you're actually in the cutoff for a baby boomer, but I'm Generation X, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Gen X, and so that makes me. We were the latchkey kids. Everybody talks about the fact that we're tougher than everybody else, and we just don't care and. Yeah, but that was that. Just to go back to my original point, that was my car seat, was standing in the back seat with my arm behind my mom while she would drive.
Yeah. We were the we eat dirt generation.
And survived.
Didn't survive, yeah.
But back to his traumatic brain injury. I mean, they do think that he suffered some brain damage from that incident. And the older half-brother is also taking some abuse from Jeff. Jeff actually threw a fork at Jamie's brother, and it stabs him like in the body.
Ooh.
And sticks there. And half-brother, don't have a name for him either. Some of these names are out there, by the way, and a lot of these names people have asked for their name not to be used, so I'm just not using them. But half-brother at this point, he moves out and into the home of his grandparents.
So we have bio-dad and half-bro.
And half-bro. And half-bro moves in with grandma and grandpa.
Okay.
And from this point forward, Jamie's half-brother is going to do magnificently.
Oh, really?
Like he becomes a productive, successful citizen of society. Like he's a prominent businessman wherever he is.
Okay. Do you know what he did?
No.
Okay.
No. I just know that he was a successful businessman. I think one of the sources said, he like drives a sports car and he has a family and he's very active in his community. Once again, nobody wants to be this guy's even half-brother.
Sure.
So, but yes, he's this great guy. So nature versus nurture, right?
Right.
He got out, turned out great. So now Jamie has the brunt of all of Jeff's anger and abuse. And Jeff and Michelle, because these two are so awesome, they actually have 2 children together.
Okay.
And he's a good dad to his own kids. Like Jeff is a really good father to his own children, but not to Jamie. And the abuse gets worse. Like he was forced to watch the other 2 children and his mom and his stepdad eat at the dinner table while he sat at the table with nothing. Like he had to watch them eat. And when everybody else was finished, Jeff would put Jamie's food on the floor sometimes.
Wow, it's kind of like Harry Potter.
Yeah. He would shut him out in the cold. He once tied him to a tree and whipped him. I read that he had an uncle that like threw a brick at his head. He's 5 years old while this is going on. These are all punishments. So, you have to think, where's the mom?
Right.
Well, at one point, she did call 911, and they arrest Jeff. And Jeff tells the police, well, I'm just kidding around. Yeah, it was just a joke. It wasn't anything big.
That brick was just a joke.
Well, the brick was an uncle. But the other stuff, he's beating him or he's, chaining him to a tree and whipping him. And Jeff is charged with child cruelty. And he pleads guilty. And then he goes home to be with Michelle, their 2 children, and Jamie.
Okay.
So just a slap on the wrist. He pleads guilty, go on home, abuse the kids some more. So Jamie sort of turns to the streets. He's kind of being raised by the streets. And when you are tortured as a kid, a lot of times you like to torture things as well. You like to do to other living things what's been done to you.
Right.
Jamie liked to torture the family cat, and I'm sorry if you're a cat person. If you're a cat person, just skip ahead 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He would put this cat in the freezer for 15 minutes. Then he would take the cat out. Then he would put the cat into an oven for 15 minutes.
Wow.
Then he begins cutting himself. He's so disconnected from the world around him that he's cutting himself when he's 10 years old just so he can feel something.
Wow.
So he's had this horrific childhood. Believe me, I'm not taking up for this guy because when you hear everything that's going to happen, you're going to be like, whatever.
Right.
But he did have a horrific childhood. He was mistreated. He was abused. He was unloved. Now, maybe because Michelle was being abused too. He was abusing her as well. And she's admitted, I have heard her admit that she was a weak person. She has admitted that she didn't handle the situation well.
Right.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
I'm not going to comment on that anymore. But we know that Jeff would whip Michelle with a belt and then would pour salt into her open wounds.
Oh, my. This guy is just...
This is the stepdad. This is just the stepdad.
I was
Jeff.
going to say, are we talking Satanist, the
No.
kid, or this guy? Because it sounds like he's got a little bit of...
Yeah, this asshole.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, though, he's great to his own kids.
Yeah,
he's really nice to his own kids, which has to make it even harder, which is very much Harry Potter, where, he's living under the stairs. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, adding insult to injury.
Mm-hmm. But by the time he's 12, Jamie moves in with his grandparents, so perhaps this is better? And the answer to that is no, because even though he's out of the abusive household, he's had 12 years of psychological damage, and Jamie is completely disconnected from the world. I also read that his grandfather really didn't want him living with him.
Why not?
So it's like nobody wants him.
Why didn't his grandfather?
I don't know. But it's at this age that Jamie becomes all consumed with the idea of killing someone. So he's tortured, the cat. I think he did kill the cat too, but you would think after all of that.
Yeah.
But he's becoming all consumed with killing. When he's 13, he claims to have murdered a woman. He's never been charged with this murder. He's confessed to it, and he seemed to know things about the body that was recovered that only the murderer would know. Wow. It's a little hard to believe that a 13-year-old could kill. The victim in question was a 27-year-old woman. But with Jamie, I think it's totally possible. When you hear the rest of the story, you're going to say, I think maybe that 13-year-old kid could have done this.
Well, just the stuff that he's gone through in his life to this point makes me go, yeah, he probably could.
Yeah, is he acting out? Is he all, he just wants to kill. At the age of 15, he stabs another boy. Couldn't really find the story behind the stabbing, but he's finally acting out on humans and getting caught. Because if he did kill at 15, he's still doing it, but he just gets caught. Sure. He goes to juvie for 4 years. Okay. And apparently her son going to prison is the impetus for Michelle finally having the courage to leave Jeff. Okay. And Jeff's eventually going to have a heart attack and die while Jamie's in the juvenile detention center.
Wow.
I know, right? Rest in peace.
Sorry.
There's also some evidence out there that Jeff himself was the product of an abusive childhood. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, just the cycle keeps going on and on and on.
Yes, and I looked this up. About 30% of abused and neglected children will later abuse their own children.
Well, of course.
That's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to break that cycle. September 14th, 2007, when Jamie is 19, he's released from juvenile detention and he joins a gang. And I've read that gangs are pseudo-families that give young people the family that they really need, that they've never had. Right. And several gang members who've been studied have said that being a part of a gang meant that you were never alone in the world, which is similar to how many people describe being part of a close-knit family. Mm-hmm. So gangs provide members this sense of belonging and protection. It's the kind of protection that they don't receive from other relationships or experiences in life. It's the perfect place for Jamie Osuna. Also in 2007, when he's 19, he apparently kills another woman in Kern County in an orchard. And here's what he said, quote, "Kind of don't want to get into that one because I was young at that age, and that part had to do with, how can I say this? A certain, what is that word? I was kind of like a protege, had a teacher really. Wow. I don't want to go into that one because I was kind of guided on that one. I was kind of helped," end quote.
Whoa. So somebody was like mentoring him to be a murderer?
That's what he says.
Wow.
He says that he had a friend who believes as he does, shares the same desires that he does. As a Satanist.
Wow.
A year later, in 2008, Jamie goes to a house party at the home of Jane. This is not her real name. I do know her real name. It's in the legal documents, but lots of people refer to her as Jane, so I will too.
Okay.
Jane is single and had worked as a psychiatric nurse in a prison. This woman must be a saint, because I would think it's hard enough to work the psych unit as a nurse, but to add on top of the fact that she's dealing with convicted felons, rapists, and murderers.
Wow.
And in fact, she retires because she was attacked by an inmate. She is so brutally attacked, her breast implant is ruptured and a disc in her spine is herniated.
Wow.
I mean, that's like...
Yeah, that's a brutal beating.
That is a brutal beating, and it's kind of like one of my phrases is no good deed goes unpunished,
Right.
and she's in there trying to help these men, and this is what happens.
Yeah.
But Jane is throwing a party for her younger son in December of 2008. She'd provided alcohol for the party. She was partying too. I think it was his 16th birthday. But her nephew didn't like that this younger boy was dancing with his aunt, who I believe is 37 at the time.
Okay.
So he enlists Jamie. He goes to Jamie and says, who'll go scare off this guy? Who's going to get this guy off of my aunt? And Jamie's like, yeah, I'll do it. I volunteer.
Wow.
And so he's on his way to do the scaring, and he takes a detour through the kitchen, and he gets himself a knife.
A knife, yep.
And he stabs this young guy who's dancing with Jane,
Wow.
which lands him back in jail for assault with a deadly weapon, and he's violated his parole.
Yeah.
Jane, on the other hand, gets in trouble for supplying alcohol to minors because, as you might imagine, when a stabbing occurs in your house, the police show up.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Imagine that. So she's in trouble. Jamie goes back to prison. He decides he wants to pursue Jane. He writes her letters, and she writes them back. There
Really?
is an 18-year difference. If she's 37...
He's 19?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This goes on for an entire year. And when Jamie is released in November of 2009, Jane meets him and picks him up from prison. She's waiting outside the door for him. He had gone into prison without tattoos, and he came out of prison very tattooed.
All tatted up.
On his face.
Oh, that's hardcore.
On his face.
Wow.
Yeah. I will post pictures of this in the In-Laws and Outlaws. It gets progressively worse. I mean, you can see him now. He is still alive. I'll give you that. I mean, I'm not giving anything away.
Right.
This asshole's still alive and kicking.
So a job interview at Goldman Sachs is probably not in his future.
A job interview anywhere. I don't know. And I think he does it to make himself look scary. I did read he's a little guy. He's like 5'7". He's been tossed into jail. Did he have his face tattooed so he would look tough?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him in jail. Some bad things could have happened to him in jail too. He's a little guy.
Sure.
And he's a young guy. But she picks him up from prison. This is November 2009. And they go straight to a motel and spend the night together.
Wow.
And Jane thinks this is going to be a one-night stand.
Right.
But she gets pregnant.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And when Jamie finds out that she's pregnant, he wants to be the father. He wants to be a father that he never had. He wants to be the kind of dad that he never got. And he convinces Jane to give their relationship a chance. So he's very attentive to her while she's pregnant, and he proposes to her. And he says he's old-fashioned. He wanted to be married before the baby is born. So in February of 2010, these two tie the knot. She's 3 months pregnant.
Wow.
And Jamie's grandmother's house is the place of the ceremony. They get married at the grandparents' home.
The grandparents of the grandfather that didn't want him to...
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if it was maternal or fraternal. Yeah.
Okay.
Because just because his dad's not in the picture doesn't mean that his dad's parents aren't in the picture.
Sure.
I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
But this marriage is going to be pretty short-lived because he begins to be mentally and physically abusive to Jane. And it gets so bad that while she's pregnant that Jane calls the police. They're fighting, and Jamie gets so angry that he grabs the urn with the cremains of Jane's mother and runs out of the house with her ashes, which will never be found again.
Oh, wow.
So he's just trying to hurt her where he thinks it will matter the most.
Right. Because
she was really close to her mom. And she had taken the death of her mother very, very hard. But she calls the police. They arrest Jamie, and now he's back in prison for domestic abuse.
And it's no more juvie for him either.
Well, no. That when he got out the first time, it was juvenile detention because he was 19 when he finished his. But when he stabbed the guy at the party for dancing with Jane, he's 19 years old, so he automatically went to jail, then got sentenced and sent to prison.
Okay.
And when he comes out of prison is when he's all tatted up, which is why I said he's a little guy, so you don't really know maybe what happened in there.
Okay.
While Jamie is in prison, his son is born. He spends the next 6 months in prison, and then in February of 2010, he's out, and Jane takes him back. She's going to give him another chance. I think she maybe wanted to make it work for the baby.
Okay, whatever.
By this time, Jamie is using meth, which is fueling his anger and exacerbating his psychological scars. It's making a bad person a worse person.
Right.
He's more violent, and the abuse keeps happening. Jane is becoming numb to all of it, which made Jamie mad because he wanted a reaction. He wanted her to be afraid of him. Mm. By the way, he's got even more tattoos when he comes out of jail the second time, or third time, however you're counting this.
Yeah.
So Jamie decides he's going to take his anger out on Jane's 7-year-old son. Remember, she had kids before she married him. So he throws him out of his bed while Jane is watching, and Jane she snaps. She goes crazy on Jamie, and she gets out a knife, and she threatens him. And when she does this, Jamie then, what do you think he does?
Your guess is as good as
mine.
No,
I want you to take a guess. This is a violent guy, all tatted up. He's physically abusive.
I can imagine.
She pulls a knife on him. What does he do?
He probably walks right up to her and tells her to stab him.
He calls his grandmother to come pick him up.
Okay, I was way off base.
That's why I wanted to set you up for that one. He calls his grandmother. She's being mean to me. Come pick me up. So he's okay with threatening other people, but he's surprised and he's hurt by his wife standing up for herself.
How could you do this to me?
I mean, there's such a mental disconnect going on here. And this is just the tip of the iceberg that's going to take down the whole damn Titanic. Just wait. He leaves the house, but he's back again really soon. He's ready to push Jane to her breaking point. So when he comes back and acts a fool again, Jane calls the police again, and he goes back to prison for 7 months. He is released on Halloween, October 31st, 2011.
Yeah, how appropriate is that?
No, you have no idea. You have no idea. This is one of the most brutal true crimes I have ever researched.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. Just hang on to your britches, people.
Right. Let me put my seatbelt on.
Put the seatbelt on that we didn't have or did not wear in the 70s.
Yeah. Let me climb in the back window.
Yeah. As soon as he is out on October 31st, 2011, he's back on his bullshit, and I wrote it in the script, and I'm leaving it in there.
Okay.
He's back to harassing Jane. He's calling her on the phone to threaten her. He tells her he's going to kill her. She actually has a restraining order against him at this point, but he's threatening to kill her and the children. And then he would show up and stand on her lawn and stare through her windows. Just stand there and stare.
That's not intimidating at all.
Yeah. I mean, I kept, when I was reading that and researching it, I kept thinking about the movie Halloween, the first one, another movie from the 70s. Yeah. I think it's 1979.
When
or is it 1980?
Just standing out there staring.
Yeah. Is that 1979 or 1980?
I have no idea.
It's late 70s, early 80s. But yes, when he's just standing out there staring. And it's the exact same thing. He would be standing in the yard staring. She's creeped out. She calls 911. The police show up. He's gone.
Just like Jason.
Yeah. And remember, he's been out of prison for a week.
Wow.
A week. November 8th, 2011. Jane gets another phone call saying, "Put on the news." And I think the quote was, quote, "Put on the news, bitch. I just killed a woman at El Morocco Motel," end quote. It's Jamie calling Jane.
Wow.
And she's thinking, he could actually do this. This could be real. This could not, I'm scared of him. this could be the real thing. So she calls 911, but the police don't do anything. They don't follow up on her tip at all. They say nothing. Okay, whatever. It's, well, these two are on record. I mean, they've got a police record of domestic abuse and...
Yeah, but if you've got a guy that's violent and you've got somebody calling saying, hey, listen, I just got this phone call and this is what happened, you think that they would at least entertain the idea.
You would think that, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they were busy with other bodies and things that were real to them and not just this might have happened at the El Morocco Motel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But 5 days later, police get a call from the El Morocco Motel. Housekeeping has found the dead body of 37-year-old Yvette Pena. And Yvette is a loving mother with 6 children whose ages range from 6 to 25 years old.
She was busy.
She lived in Bakersfield, California. I did read that she didn't have the best childhood either. These are just a lot of broken people, but she didn't have the best childhood either. But she was also a Sunday school teacher, so she had really pulled her life together.
Sure.
And so when this body is found, the police are like, wait a minute, didn't we get a call about this?
Yeah.
Didn't somebody call and say something about the El Morocco Hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah. And police don't know it yet, but Jamie's DNA is all over the crime scene. They go looking for him. They can't locate him, but they get a tip that Jamie has gone not to his grandparents' home, but to his great-grandparents' home. 5 days after Yvette's body is found, they put 2 and 2 together and they go arrest him at his great-grandparents' house. And Yvette had been killed by blunt force trauma, stabbing, and asphyxia. She had a knife and a pair of scissors in her back, and she had been gagged. Her body had been mutilated. They do not talk about it. The details of the crime scene are never really released, other than to say that authorities said it was the worst crime scene they had ever encountered.
Wow.
It's thought that Jamie killed Yvette slowly and sadistically. Wow. It was a brutal murder. He made her suffer the whole time.
Gee.
So now they've got Jamie in custody, and he tells police that, I didn't have anything to do with Yvette's murder, and I hope they find the person who did this. That's terrible. And even though police have Jane's statement about Jamie telling her that he had murdered a woman at the El Moroccan Hotel, he tells police that Jane's lying, and she is setting him up. So Yvette had no ties to Jamie whatsoever, except... she looks very, very similar to his estranged wife, Jane. So they ask him, did you kill her because she looked like your wife? To which he says, if I wanted to kill my wife, Jane, I'd kill my wife, Jane.
Probably not the wisest thing to say to a cop.
Well, I mean, the balls on this guy. Just wait. All right. And remember I said his DNA is everywhere, and they have enough to charge him, so Jamie goes back to jail to await trial, where he gets even more tattoos, including a pentagram on his forehead.
Does he have any room left?
They wait on his face? Not on neck? Not really, no. Yeah. Wait till you see the pictures.
Okay.
From jail, Jamie starts calling Jane and telling her he's coming for her. He's going to make her pay for what she's done. And he even gets other scary inmates to call and threaten her.
Jeez.
I mean, I wrote in the margin of my script, don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you have to agree to speak to someone from the inside of a prison?
Well, and two, I mean, what year is this, 2012?
2011.
2011. There's a thing called caller ID.
Yeah, well, and once again, I'm pretty sure when you pick up the phone, it says you have a call from the prison.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk to this person?
Well, and that was the other thing I was going to ask about. When he called her to tell her, Jane, that he had killed this woman at the motel.
Right.
Couldn't they go back and look at records and see if he had made a call? I mean, did he call from a cell phone or what did he do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
My guess is that he called from a cell phone.
Yeah. I mean,
they just didn't look into it
at
all.
Right.
I mean, she called and said, look it. He is totally capable of doing this. And they were like, yeah, lady, we're a little busy.
Yeah.
So 5 days later, housekeeping finds the body. To which my question is, why 5 days later?
Right.
Unless, there was a do not disturb sign, but wouldn't you have to have the hotel room paid up for 5 days? I mean, there are a lot of questions in there, a whole lot of questions. Sure. But while he's in prison, Jamie tries from jail to get social services to take away Jane's kids, and he's trying to hurt her however he can. He also writes prolifically to Child Protective Services about Jane. She's a bad mom. She should never have custody. He would also send Jane letters in the mail, letters that were written in blood. Oh. And the letters would say, "Hail Satan," and they would be covered in pentagrams. He also sent her, through the U.S. Postal Service, an envelope whose contents were a smashed, flattened, dead rat.
Oh, gee whiz.
That's a bad day. That's a bad day at the mailbox. You think going out and picking bills up out of your mailbox is bad?
Yeah.
If somebody sent you a dead animal, how did that make it through the post office?
I don't know.
Did they hand stamp it? I mean, how did it make it? Didn't get fed through the machine. So
it wasn't from Hallmark.
That is not a Hallmark card, right?
Lord.
Jamie's also caught with a letter that he's sent to someone outside of jail with instructions on how to kill Jane. So he's sending letters outside of jail. Go kill my wife. My estranged wife.
Take my wife, please.
Ba-dum-bum-ch. Now, Jane's going to be arrested during all of this for child cruelty.
What?
And it wasn't because of all the noise that Jamie was making. She hit one of her children, and then the kid told somebody. I believe it was like a counselor at school or something. And Child Protective Services have all these letters from her husband in jail, and she's got a record, and either if the child has a bruise or whatever, So she's arrested.
Okay.
And while Jane is being transported in a prison van from court to jail, inside the van is Jamie himself. He's being transported from God knows where. And how they end up in the same van, who the hell knows? But you're going to see that maybe Jamie has some control over guards or...
This is like a movie script.
Oh, I'm just telling you.
Wow.
Regardless, here's how this is going to play out. Jamie is locked in an area of the van, and he can't get to Jane. So it's like compartmentalized, and he's like locked inside a cage in there.
Right.
But Jane is in like the general population, so to speak.
Right.
She's in the yard of the van where she and another female inmate are sitting. And while they are en route, Jamie says to the other woman, quote, "Do it now and you'll get the drugs," end quote.
No.
And the other woman starts beating Jane within an inch of her life.
Wow.
Inside the van, as it's screaming down the highway, she's screaming for the guard who is driving to stop. He does not stop.
Wow.
She isn't hurt enough to go to the hospital, but the guard did not care. And that is a little bit of foreshadowing.
Uh-oh. Here it comes. Wait, let me do my thing. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, go ahead.
Now, while Jane is in jail after her scary van ride, Jamie tries to get another inmate to murder Jane. He somehow finds out what her cell number is, and he actually puts a price on her head for anyone who would kill her while she's in jail. But he's caught doing this, and eventually the charges against Jane are dropped and she does go home. But she has a mental breakdown once she gets out. After all of this, she literally has a breakdown. And Jane will later find out that Jamie has since told a guard that he wished he'd killed Jane himself that day in the van.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Yvette Pena's family, they want a pound of flesh for her murder, as they should. Yvette had her own troubled upbringing, which I told you about. She was really close to her sister. She basically raised her little sister, Danielle. Okay. This was a family who loved her very much. And Jamie has zero remorse for murdering Yvette. He tells authorities that he planned on continuing to murder, and if he could go back in time, he wouldn't change a thing. He'd do it all over again. And if he's ever released from prison, he'd commit murder again and be right back.
Wow.
But it's been 5 years since her sister's death, and still nothing has happened. A trial date is set for March 27th, 2017, but 3 days before, Jamie agrees to be interviewed by a journalist. Olivia Lavoie is her name. And what he tells her before the camera starts rolling, he actually says to her, "I did it." So all this time he's said, no, it's not me. I hope they find her. And then right before this trial is going to happen, after it's been dragged out for 3 years, he tells this reporter, "I did it."
But they don't have it on camera.
Well, she then turns the camera on. And let me tell you what, I've read a little bit about her. She's the one that has the podcast. She's like a young fledgling reporter. And she sits in a room with this guy. You can see some of the YouTube videos. He's like in his jumpsuit and his, feet are shackled or whatever. She's not that far. She's not even social distancing from this asshole. She's not even 6 feet away from him.
Right.
But she starts asking him questions and he just says, "I did it." And so they get the cameras rolling, and then he says on camera, quote, "I'm sadistic. I really don't care. I'll do it, and I'll do it over and over and over and over."
Wow.
And then end quote. And then I wrote in the margin, "Dude, 2 overs were enough. You overdid it with the overs."
Yeah, we get it.
So she starts pressing him for more information. I mean, what else could she get out of him? And I was thinking as I saw this, I was like, this is like Pulitzer Prize winning stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like Emmy television award stuff.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about his childhood, and he tells her all about the abuse he endured. Quote, "Since I was a kid, 8 or 9 years old, I killed animals. My mom would go to the store. I'd put the cat in the freezer for 15 minutes and then let him out. Then I'd put him in the oven, then let him out." So he's very disconnected from everything. And remember, he would cut as a kid, and the tattoos are also him trying to feel something. And there are a lot of shrinks out there who, this guy's been, psychologically profiled out the yin-yang, but there are a lot of talented psychiatrists who say he deliberately tattooed his face because it was more painful.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, the fact that he started cutting himself at such a young age, what was he, like 10? Gee whiz. Yeah. I mean, that's just...
When she asks him about murder, he says, quote, "It's a rush. It's an addiction. It's a drug. I would rather do that than do drugs. I'd rather do that than have sex with the beautifulest woman in the world. I don't care if you're a lawyer. I don't care if you're a teacher. I don't care if you're a gang member. I don't care if you're my brother. I don't care if you're my sister. I don't care if you're whoever. It's self-gratification."
Wow. So he's an equal opportunity murderer.
Apparently.
Yeah.
He goes on, "I did it sadistically, premeditatedly, not a word, deliberately. I would torture and murder." Yeah, he did all of these things to Yvette Pena on purpose.
Wow.
After this, he confesses to 2 more murders, the 2 that I told you about in the beginning.
Right.
The first when he was 13, and one was in 2007, a 32-year-old female. It was his first taste of murder. He couldn't get enough of it after that. And when they ask him if any of this is gang-related, remember he was part of a gang? He says no. No, not part of a gang. This had nothing to do with being in a gang. His trial goes ahead 3 days later, and he takes a plea deal. He takes a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Yeah. Well, dude, you're going to hell. So I think I'd probably want to stay alive as long as I could, too.
Yeah.
But they're saying that this was his way of being in control. He was dragging this out all these years, all these little trials, all these things in front of the judge. Every single time Yvette Pena's family would have to come out, they'd be there. He was just dragging it out. And then when it was time to go to trial, after everybody'd done all the work, he says, "I'm just going to take a plea deal to avoid the death penalty." And being in court, he loved being in court with Yvette's family because he would mock them. He would roll his eyes. He would smirk as her family would address the court.
Wow.
And when he's sentenced to life without parole, Jamie, who is now 29, gives a thumbs up to Judge John S. Summers. And when the judge says, look, dude, you're going to die in prison. He doesn't say that. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
He waved at Yvette's relatives before deputies could take him away. And Danielle Gonzalez, who is Pena's younger sister, told the court there's no such thing as closure when someone you love dies in, quote, such a tragic way. The pain she feels is the same as it was when she was first notified of the killing. That's what she's telling the court. You know, you get to make a victim impact statement.
Right.
And she says this, quote, 5 years, 6 months, and 2 days later, the hurt is still just as bad as the night that I got the knock at my door, end quote.
Wow. Can't imagine.
So Jamie pleads guilty to 5 charges, including first-degree murder. And Gonzalez, during her comments to the court, said that Jamie Osuna has smiled during the 12 court hearings she attended in the case. And she said that she hoped one day he would feel remorse. And Jamie Osuna immediately looked at her, shook his head repeatedly, and mouthed no.
Wow. Pure evil.
So he's just taunting this family. And for 5 stinking years, he said he was innocent and made this family go through hell,
right.
which was his whole intent.
Sure.
So Jamie Osuna is now in prison without the possibility of parole, but he's not done. He's not done yet. Jamie arrives in prison and it's decided that he's too dangerous. He needs to be alone. And the Corcoran State Prison where he's housed, they know Jamie's a dangerous guy. They actually know that a man who says, if I get out, I'm going to murder again, could very possibly murder someone inside the prison walls, right?
Right.
In fact, Jamie was charged with attempted murder while he was in jail prior to his conviction. He'd been caught with a shank and a hatchet-like weapon on 2 separate occasions. He had attacked another inmate, sending him to the hospital for 67 stitches. He slashed him in the face.
Wow.
Later, Jamie's going to ask to see the photos of the injuries. He wants to see what he's done to him after they've taken him away.
He wants to see his work.
This is a guy who wants to kill people, and he's telling them, I want to kill, and he's attempting to do so in prison.
Right.
He would write messages in blood on his walls. At one point, he somehow got his hands on a carton of blood. That's what I read.
What?
He somehow got his hands on a good amount of blood, like in a milk carton. Maybe he collected it in a milk carton. I don't know, but he threw it at a prison guard.
Oh,
so all of this happened just in jail, those 5 years before he even goes to prison, even before he takes his plea deal. They know what a bad guy he is.
Sure.
So after he's convicted, what do? Well, he's recommended for placement on a mental health unit, and he's obviously mentally ill.
Right.
But he's also obviously extremely dangerous.
Right.
When he's out of the mental health unit, where, by the way, he would refuse to take any drugs, on March 7th, 2019, at the age of 31, Jamie Osuna gets a cellmate.
What?
For the very first time.
Wow. And this was a good idea because...
Well, I mean, this is just...
How would you like to be that cellmate knowing you get assigned to this guy?
Well, let me tell you about him.
I'd be like, I'll never do it again. I swear to God, I'll never do it again.
Here's who his cellmate is. His name is Luis Romero. He's a 44-year-old man who had served 27 years for second-degree murder and was on his way out of the prison system. He was going to be up for parole soon. And it was why he had been transferred from his prison, which was Mule Creek State Prison, to Corcoran State Prison in California.
Okay.
Lewis had moved to L.A. from Guatemala when he was 16 years old. By the time he's 17, he's in the wrong crowd. He's in a gang. He shoots and kills a woman in Compton, California that's part of a rival gang. And while in prison, Lewis found God. And based on the letters he sent to his family members, he was really, really trying to turn his life around.
Right.
On March 7th, 2019, Ramiro arrives at the Corcoran State Prison. Here we go.
Okay.
But now he's at Jamie's prison, and for all reasons still unknown, they made Lewis the cellmate of Jamie Osuna.
That's just insane.
It is. It's crazy. He moves in with Jamie on March 8th. On March 9th, 24 hours after these two become cellmates, Lewis is dead. March 8th, 2019, the prison staff did not conduct the regularly scheduled inmate checks. These happen every day and every night, every 30 minutes, right?
Right.
It's got a Jeffrey Epstein vibe to it.
Yeah, a little bit. This sounds like a little bit of a setup.
In the cell that housed Jamie Osuna and Luis Romero, a white sheet is covering the window. You can't do that. That's forbidden in prison.
Yeah.
But the prison staff didn't investigate or tell him to take down the sheet. In fact, they only go to check on this cell in the early morning hours of March 9th.
So is somebody on the take here?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
Hang on. When they take the sheet down, prison officials realized that Luis Romero no longer has a head.
Ugh.
He had been decapitated.
Oh, my God.
He had been cut up. Using a razor blade attached to a handle, Jamie Osuna disfigured Luis Romero, cutting out one of his eyes, chopping off one of his fingers,
Jeez.
removing part of his ribs, and slicing out one lung. He ultimately cut off his head. He also posed the body. He sliced Romero's face open on either side of his mouth to resemble an extended smile.
Jeez.
So yeah, his unattached head had been cut at the corners of the mouth to look like the Joker.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that one of the tattoos that Jamie has is the extended lines on the corners of his mouth, like the Joker.
Wow.
And like sort of the weird triangular things over his eyes and over his eyelids.
Wow.
This is the worst part. This is gruesome. Jamie Osuna is wearing a necklace made from the body parts of Lewis.
Ugh.
Jamie had done all of this with a small razor, and on the wall, written in blood, it says, "I am the man with 1,000 faces." He admits to the murder, but he pleads
Not guilty.
not guilty. And here are some of the conspiracy theories, okay? It was a setup. That's what you said. Lewis was supposed to beat up Jamie, or Lewis was supposed to be attacked by Jamie. It's not the first time this sort of thing has happened at this particular prison. It's known as being one of the most dangerous prisons in the United States. Corcoran Prison was the home of Charles Manson, Rodney Alcala, the dating game guy, the dating game killer, which was one of our episodes, and even Sirhan Sirhan, the killer of Robert Kennedy. But there have been lots of reporters who have done stories on the brutality of this place. And it's not just prisoner against prisoner. It's guard against prisoner.
Oh, wow.
They had like gladiator fights, prisoner on prisoner, where the guards would take bets.
Oh, my gosh.
And they would also shoot the inmates who were fighting. So there were 50 inmates shot over 5 years while this gladiator type fighting is happening in the yard.
You would think with 50 within 5 years that there would be some sort of red flag or investigation?
Well, yeah, 50 of them were shot. 7 of them died.
Wow.
But what the guards would say is, you know, this happened. It was out of our control. He was going to leave. He was unruly. I had to shoot him kind of thing.
Sure.
There are those who have said that this prison has changed, and the 2 prison officers were just slapped on the wrist. They lied during their internal affairs interview. There were even reports of screaming that night while Lewis is being murdered. I mean, how long does it take to cut off a man's head with a razor blade?
Yeah.
And he dismembered his body and mutilated it.
Wow.
In January of 2021, a judge said that Jamie Osuna wasn't competent to stand trial for the murder of Lewis. And Jamie has even requested, just like before when he slashed the guy in the face, he has requested the crime scene photos of his murder of Lewis. He wants to see his handiwork. So he was transferred to a psychiatric inpatient program for treatment where psychiatrists months later said he has been restored to competency, meaning he understood the charges against him and could assist legal counsel in preparing a defense.
Okay.
But just last month, in July of 2022, Jamie fired his defense counsel. Jamie Osuna, who is now 34, flanked by 8 detention deputies, requested a Marsden hearing, and Kings County Judge Michael Reinhart cleared the courtroom to hear why new counsel should be appointed. But before he did, Jamie Osuna waves to an unidentified woman who's sitting in the courtroom, and the judge told him to knock it off.
Wow.
And a Marsden motion is a formal request made by a criminal defendant to the court. The court hears arguments on the motion from the defendant and the attorney without the presence of the prosecutor. Okay. So that's what he wanted. He wanted all this to go down without the DA there.
Gotcha.
The courtroom reopened a few minutes later, and Reinhart announced that he had granted Osuna's request, and Hugo Gomez Vidal was appointed as Jamie Osuna's new attorney. And a hearing was scheduled last month where Gomez Vidal, after reviewing tons and tons of court documents and medical records, will say that he disputes the psychiatrist's findings that Osuna is competent to stand trial. So that's really the only leg he has to stand on. Sure. He's crazy.
Right.
He's knucking futs.
Yeah, big time.
And this hearing has been put off for September of this year, September of 2022, next month. And Judge Reinhart also believes that Jamie Osuna isn't entitled to a jury trial. It's going to be a bench trial. The judge will hear the case instead.
Okay.
Now, a lawsuit, as you might imagine, has also been filed over why Luis Romero was even in a cell with Jamie Osuna.
Yeah, exactly.
Why the officers did not discover the grisly scene early is not detailed in any reports, but a lawsuit by Romero's family says that the cell bars were covered with a white sheet, suggesting that the guards failed to make a thorough check of the cell. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
The Department of Corrections has disputed the findings of the reports, saying in a statement that it had conducted a, quote, thorough and complete investigation from the very beginning, end quote. To which I say, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. A little, too late.
Yeah. The attorney for the Ramirez family, his name is Justin Sterling. He said the reports outline the department's, quote, veil of secrecy, end quote, that obscures officer misconduct. Quote, the idea that my client had to sue in order to get basic answers about her son's death is disheartening, end quote, which I totally agree with.
Sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He was, he'd turned his life around. He was on his way out. No one had ever been a cellmate of Jamie Osuna. So why start then?
Yeah, and the fact that he was considered a very, very dangerous man.
Yeah.
And they had kept him away from, general population.
Yes, for this reason, because he said he wanted to murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, there's something fishy going on. Yeah.
Hinky.
With a capital H.
With a big O-H. So what did the psychiatrist say about Jamie Osuna? What's his diagnosis? Borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and unspecified schizophrenia spectrum. But let's talk about his fascination with the Joker for just a second. Okay. I told you he has that smile tattooed on his own face.
Right.
And he cut Lewis's face the same way. He sent a letter to the DA with her photo inside where he drew the Joker smile on her, and underneath it the words that said, quote, why so serious, end quote. It's on the bottom of the letter. That's a line from the very first Batman movie, Why So Serious?
Oh, that's right. Jack Nicholson.
Yes. Yeah. There's actually a movie quote in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to work at it.
You didn't have to do a thing, honey. I did all the heavy lifting for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but why so serious?
Wow.
And here's what Jamie Osuna says. He said that killing gives him a rush and a sense of fulfillment. Quote, I love what I've experienced. To this day, if I could go back in time and change anything, would I? No. I would go back and do it again. And if I'm released, I will end up here again with the same kind of case.
Wow.
End quote. So we wait until the end of this year to find out what happens to Jamie Osuna. But that's the story. And that's all I have to say about that. Hitch to Homicide listeners. This is Chris Calvert. I love doing research and writing about real crimes, but I also love writing about fictional people who commit horrible atrocities. When you're ready to take a break from true crime for fictional crime, go to chriscalvert.com, where you'll find all my books, including some free ones to get you started. Jane Doe is one badass chick who quietly hunts terrorists in the United States. The Sex and Lies books are all FBI and CIA cases with a little romance on the side. And coming summer 2022, Book 10 in the series, Sex, Lies, and Rock and Roll, releases. You can find all of these books everywhere, and if you like to listen instead of read, you can find them all on Audible. So go grab a free book or take a listen. I love all the characters I've written. I've given them pain, ruined their lives, make them suffer, and maybe even throw in a heroic death. Or maybe they live to fight another day. Check it all out at chriscalvert.com, and thanks for being a listener of Hitched to Homicide.
So we have to wait and see if Jamie's going to pay the price.
Well, I mean, it's California, so it's not like I guess he can be sentenced to death, but there hasn't been a death in California. It's just forever.
One twisted individual.
So yeah, he just gets to stay, hopefully, in his own cell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It was that's the crazy story. Just wait till you see these pictures. Wait till you see these pictures.
Gee.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move to something a bit lighter.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do a little Bless Your Heart.
Well, bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
That was good. I should have used you. Okay, Dateline, New York City, the Bronx. This one is from the Village Voice.
Oh, okay.
Yep. When you're thinking about stealing some cash, why don't you try dressing up like Darth Vader?
Okay.
Yeah. Or handing the teller a bouquet of flowers. Or being old. There are many creative ways to deceive law enforcement, but this morning, Nakia Shaw of the Bronx decided to go a different route through the back door, if you will.
Oh, gosh, that can't be good.
Yeah, and the key phrase here is the
back door.
Yeah. This is from the New York Post Daily Police Blotter, and this is how it reads. Let me clear my throat and get ready for this one. A cheeky thief who puts a stolen...
Oh, wait. Cheeky. We're off to a good start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know where this is going. Backdoor and cheeky.
Yeah,
okay.
You put those two things together, you pretty much see this one driving down Main Street.
Yep.
A cheeky thief who put a stolen $20 bill and 2 glass pipes up her butt was arrested, cop said. Nakia Shaw, 28, strolled into the Golden Crust restaurant at White Plains Road.
Wait.
What?
What's the restaurant called?
The Golden Crust.
Okay.
It's not even the Golden Corral. It's the Golden Crust.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Restaurant at White Plains Road and Allerton Avenue Tuesday at 8:45 a.m. Mm-hmm. Barked, "Give me that money," at a customer, grabbed a bill from her, and fled, cop said. The victim chased the thief into an apartment. Stop, I can't get through this when you keep laughing.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just had a visual of her like snatching a $20 bill out of somebody's hand.
I know. The victim chased the thief into an apartment building, sources said. Police grabbed Shaw, who admitted she had the money, then yanked the bill and the pipes containing the tar-like substance from her rear.
Oh.
Authorities said.
Like right in front of everybody?
I guess. Excuse me, just a second.
Oh, gosh. I hope the victim didn't want, because you said the victim chased, you don't want that $20 bill back. Nobody wants that $20 bill back.
No, it kind of reminds me of Blazing Saddles. Excuse me while I whip this out.
Oh.
Okay. For the sake of Nakia's health, we must recommend that if she must steal, she find another way to creatively conceal her contraband. That's very kind of them to put that in there.
I know.
They're just thinking of her.
They are.
Oh, my gosh.
They're just giving tips. Sharing is caring, and caring is love.
I guess.
Is this the point where I get to tell everybody that you absolutely love the shows where people have contraband in their body cavities and they're trying to get through like Venezuela or somewhere.
To Catch a Smuggler.
To Catch a Smuggler. Is that what it's
Best TV
called?
show. Yeah. They have To Catch a Smuggler, Rome, Bolivia, United States. I mean, they cover everything, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
So just don't take drugs anywhere for anybody. Just don't do drugs. That's the end of the story.
Yeah,
just don't do drugs.
You're not going to get away with it. Trust me.
I mean, the money, I think they would probably be like, okay, you can keep that. But the other stuff that are in the body cavities, I'll just stroll through the room and he'll be watching this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. No.
Love that show.
No. Well, if you have a bless your heart or a story about a body cavity, I suppose, all you have to do is go to hitchedtohomicide.com. You can pull down the little menu. You can send in that form, or you can email Chris at hitchedtohomicide.com. Make sure in the subject line you put bless your heart. I just pass them along. I don't read them. Go join the In-Laws and Outlaws. So many great people in there.
Yeah.
That's all we have today. That's my amazing husband over there who loves to watch people transporting drugs across country lines.
There you go.
Through countries.
And that's my beautiful bride on the other side there.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.